Hi, everyone, and welcome to the webinar, Zero Waste and Better Health, 2 Schools on a Journey to More Sustainable, Reusable Foodware. I think folks are calling in, and we're going to get started. We've got a lot of content today to cover. The Center for Green Schools and the Center for Environmental Health have teamed up to bring you an exciting program today. And our goal is that you will leave this call with at least one takeaway, no matter where you are in your journey of getting to a zero waste and healthy cafeteria. My name is Phoebe Byerly, and I'm with the school district. I'm the school district sustainability manager at the Center for Green Schools. And every day I work with school systems across the country who are making strides to reduce waste in their own cafeterias. And many are also talking about moving towards zero waste. But what does that mean? To truly achieve a healthier zero waste cafeteria, schools have many factors to consider, some of which might not always be on their radar, including unexpected costs, the health implications of the products they're using, both on their own student health as well as the environmental health, the state of the recycling market, which we all know is in flux every day these days, personnel impacts, and many more. So today we're going to be focusing on food service items and the shift from disposables to reusables, and the specific considerations you should keep in mind. In particular, we have the opportunity to hear from the Center for Environmental Health and dive more deeply into the specific health implications of various foodware products and the research they've been doing in that space, as well as hear from some school districts about their success stories and making the shift to reusables. Before we get started, I wanted to just mention that we'll be taking questions at the end. If you have a question at any point during the call, please submit it in the Q&A box. If you need to get in touch with a host or panelist, if you're having technical issues, you can use the chat window for that. And just a reminder for everyone, we are recording this call, and we'll be sharing the link to the recording to folks afterward, as well as a link to some of the key resources that are mentioned on the call today. So we wanted to share who's on the call today. We had over 200 attendees register, and so a quick summary is that over 50% are from the education sector, representing schools, school districts, or higher education institutions. 15% are from a local, state, or national governmental agency. Around 13% are from nonprofit or NGO. And then there's a few folks from the private sector or other sectors. I also want to note that we have over 30 states represented, which is really impressive. So that's an exciting group on the call today. I wanted to provide a brief background for those not familiar with the organization I work for, the Center for Green Schools. We're a program of the U.S. Green Building Council, which is a national nonprofit dedicated to transforming how our buildings and communities are designed and built. You may know us best from the LEED Green Building certification program. At the Center for Green Schools, our mission is that all students are able to attend a sustainable school that is inspiring, improves their health, and prepares them for 21st century careers. Unfortunately, the school environments our students are exposed to are not always meeting this standard. And our focus on all students is key for us. We really work hard to provide support at all levels to ensure equitable, high-performing school environments are accessible no matter where you live, no matter what zip code, whether you're rural, urban, suburban. So we drive change at all levels in order to achieve this lofty goal by preparing students for a sustainable future to be sustainably literate. We engage communities in greening their existing and new school projects. We also guide policy at the federal, state, and local levels in support of more sustainable schools. In 2011, we founded the School Sustainability Leaders Network, which represents over 150 districts and 200 school sustainability-focused staff. These are K-12 focused staff. I should make a note for those higher ed folks on the phone. And the goal of this group was to support school systems with technical assistance, best practice resources and connections to move the needle on green initiatives at a district scale. And webinars like this one is something we organize regularly for members. So this is one of our quarterly webinars, and the goal is to help folks stay on top of trends and hear from peers, as well as lessons learned and successful strategies. This webinar is one in a series of 3. So this is the first one. The next couple will be November 15th and December 5th. We'll be talking about the cultural shift, kind of cafeterias, culture actions in cafeteria to reduce waste. Also the importance of tracking data in zero waste efforts in cafeterias. And then in December, we'll talk a bit more about how to reduce and recover surplus food in schools. So we'll share more information about how to register for these webinars after the call today. And lastly, I wanted to just call attention to the fact that you can continue your learning on this topic and many other Green School topics at the 10th Annual Green Schools Conference and Expo, which will be happening in Portland, Oregon, March 2nd through 4th. This is a conference where over 600 Green School advocates will gather to inspire each other, share strategies, and take away new resources to further their work. So we really hope you can join us in Portland for this. This is a great conference. So moving on to the agenda to orient you to what you're going to hear today. First, we're going to do a little bit of participant polling. We have a couple of questions for you guys. Then we'll hear from Sue Ching from the Center for Environmental Health, who will share some research and concerns about PFAS and compostable products, as well as other single-use foodware products that are often used in your cafeterias. Next, we'll hear from Beth Meir and students at the Ichabod Crane School District about their shift away from styrofoam trays. And then we'll have the opportunity to talk with Rebecca Navarro at Palo Alto School District about their silverware pilot and other things that they're doing there that are pretty innovative. We'll talk a little bit about next steps on the action front, what kind of action you can take, as well as a reminder about those webinars coming up. And as a reminder, we'll wait for Q&A toward the end of the call. We did schedule this webinar to last an hour and 15 minutes, knowing we have a lot of content to get through and we anticipate a lot of questions. So again, submit your questions in the window throughout the call, and hopefully you can stick around for that time toward the end. So we're gonna move on to polling. We have 2 questions for you all. We mentioned that zero waste is a journey, and so we really thought it would be helpful to know where folks are in their journey to help the presenters today. So Sue's gonna load the poll. So the first question is, how far along are you in the process of switching to reusable serviceware? That includes trays, food containers, cutlery cups in your cafeteria. So this is select 1. You're one of 3 here. You can start voting now, and we'll close it in a minute. The options are all of our products are reusable, some of our products are reusable, and none of our products are reusable. If this doesn't apply to you, you can abstain from answering the question. All right, I think we'll close this poll and see the results. All right, looks like most people are in the middle. So some of the products are reusable, which is good to see. A few folks are leading the pack with all of them as reusable, so that's great. And the next group, none of the products are reusable. So for those that are none, hopefully today will be really helpful for you. All right, the next question. Next question is, what are your biggest hurdles to switching from single-use to reusable food serviceware? And this is maybe a nuanced question, but you can choose multiple options here and just give it your best. So increased upfront cost of materials, lack of leadership support, or lack of dishwashing infrastructure as the key hurdle. All right, so you can close that one too. Close that question. All right, so there's a little closer answer here. The highest is lack of dishwashing infrastructure, which is not surprising given our understanding of schools out there. Lack of leadership support and increased upfront cost of materials is close second and third. So kind of hurdles all across the board here, which we are not too surprised about, and we'll talk about all of these things today. All right, thank you guys for that poll. That's helpful for the presenters to have that information. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Sue, who's the Pollution Prevention Program Director at Center for Environmental Health, to share some really innovative and important research that she and her organization have been doing around PFAS and product testing, many of the products that you all are purchasing and using in your own cafeterias. So thank you, Sue, for co-hosting today, and looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Phoebe. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. I am with the Center for Environmental Health. We're a national nonprofit organization that's dedicated to protecting the public from exposure to toxic chemicals. And one of the things that we do, and what my function is at CEH, is to work with large purchasers to use your buying power basically to incentivize the production of environmentally preferable products. And so I'm really looking forward to sharing this information and working with all of you on this issue as we move forward. So I just wanted to start by talking a little bit about one of the things that we're concerned about and focusing on and putting more attention to is something called hormone or endocrine disrupting chemicals. Sometimes they're called EDCs for short. And these are all synthetic, human-made chemicals that mimic, block, or alter our body's natural, normal activity and the activity of our body's hormones at incredibly minute doses. And so this group of chemicals is of great concern because our hormones direct almost every function, of our bodies, from growth and development to processing everything from fear to sugar. And they shape our fertility, our behavior, our physical and mental development, our intelligence, our metabolism, and our longevity. And studies have shown that these chemicals can cause adverse health effects such as diabetes and obesity. They could harm our fertility, promote cancer, and cause a variety of other diseases. And what we're particularly concerned about is their effect on fetuses, babies, and young children who are particularly vulnerable because they're growing and developing so rapidly. And that's one of the reasons why we're really trying to focus on also working with K through 12 schools, but any schools and any purchasers are all welcome to join us in this and really help to get these toxic chemicals out of our products and out of our everyday lives. So I would like to move on to talk about a group of chemicals called PFAS, or per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, which are in the same class of hormone-disrupting chemicals. And what they are a group of, right now it's estimated roughly 4,700 synthetic chemicals that are in the class of PFAS. They're all fluorinated chemicals that have a carbon and fluorine bond, which is one of the strongest bonds in chemistry. So you may have been hearing about them in the news. They've been nicknamed the forever chemicals because they're extraordinarily persistent. And so once they're out there, they actually don't, degrade once they're out in nature. They're very, very strong bonds, and they can't be broken down by natural systems. So these chemicals, though, have been found to migrate out of products, and they're detected in all environmental media, our air, water, soil, and sludge. They're also been shown to bioaccumulate or build up in animals and get into our food chain. So we're at the top of the food chain, and at the top of that is our babies that are getting breastfed, and so there's the accumulation of these chemicals up the food chain and affecting babies in particular. So we're very concerned about these as they're found all over the globe now as well. And one of the reasons that this is because they're used in so many different products. So from this slide, you can see that there's many different uses. It's primarily, I think many people may have heard of Teflon or the nonstick cookware. That was one of the first uses, as well as 3M Scotchgard, which has been used for water and stain resistance, for outdoor gear, outdoor clothing, furniture, carpeting, different kinds of textiles. And then you may be surprised to know that it's also used in things like waterproof cosmetics, some dental floss, and then in the news more recently, there's been a lot of concern because of its use in firefighting foam, which is also being linked to a lot of drinking water contamination in communities, aside from where the production facilities are where these chemicals are being used. And today we're going to talk about their use in single-use foodware, which are being used for the water and grease resistance. So some of the health effects, there's been the most well-studied of these chemicals and the whole class of PFAS, you may have heard of, called PFOA, which is the chemical associated with the production of Teflon, or it's called PFOA for short. PFOS, which is the one associated with Scotchgard. Those are the two most well-studied of the group of chemicals, and because of the growing amount of evidence of these concerns on animal toxicity, as well as studies that have been looking at the human population, it's been linked to kidney and testicular cancer, elevated cholesterol, accelerated puberty, reproductive issues, depressed immune system effects, thyroid disruption, and a host of other health problems. And it's believed that our primary route of exposure is through diet. It's through, the chemicals getting into the food chain. It's from the drinking water that's been contaminated. And so there's a lot of concern with the ways and the different products that these chemicals are found in and how they're getting into everything around us and in our bodies. So as far as our work, the Center for Environmental Health began looking into and started to test all sorts of products that are used by a lot of the purchasers in cafeterias and other food serviceware operations. We focused on a few primary categories of products, so the disposable plates, bowls, clamshell, and other takeout containers, and the lunch trays that you see sort of on the far bottom right. So again, these chemicals are used primarily for water and grease resistance in these products, and we had started collecting products from our purchasing partners that everybody has been using, and then also going out and doing some of our own collection from different retailers and what's on the market. And here's a quick snapshot of some of the results that we were finding. And this is actually the most recent numbers, so we will actually be updating our database. So we have a public database of products that are online where we provide information about which products showed high levels of fluorine, which indicate likely use of these PFAS chemicals, and which ones did not. And what we found is that primarily all the molded fiber products, which it's called molded fiber, but it's all the products that where you can see kind of the fibers in it on the bottom, if not the top two, where it's made out of sugar cane, bagasse, wheat straw. It'll say like natural plant fibers or even recycled paper fibers. And they basically put the chemicals into a whole slurry of these fibers to give it that water and grease resistance, and then they mold the products into the shapes and then let them dry, and that's how they get the product. So you won't necessarily see a coating on these products. And one thing you will note is that there's actually a couple products on here now that say non-fluorinated under molded fiber, and that's actually a newer development. So we're actually starting to see the market change, and this is really, really promising. But it's still in the very early stages. But this is all happening because purchasers like yourselves are reaching out to their suppliers and manufacturers, letting them know, you don't want this stuff in the products you're getting and that what you're using to serve to students every day in the cafeterias. And so I'll be telling you more about this change that's happening, but I also wanted to note that, we're strongly recommending that people not use polystyrene or styrofoam products. I know it's very common on the market and it's very, very cheap, but there's also a lot of concerns, both health and environmental reasons why we don't recommend using those products. So as we were looking at all our data, we were realizing that as far as the recommendations go, there's so many issues and trade-offs with all the different single-use products that our bottom line recommendation for everyone is to try to go to reusables as much as possible and look for any way you can to minimize the use of these single-use throwaway products. And there's some really great resources from another organization that's an ally of ours called Clean Water Action. They have a program called Rethink Disposable. They have a lot of case studies which are maybe geared a little bit more towards a commercial cafeteria or that kind of a business, but we're hoping that they'll start to have more case studies and information about what schools are doing, and that's one of the reasons why we're featuring these two school districts today about what they've done to go back to reusables. And then as far as the single-use products, because we understand that, it's not going to happen overnight, and there's not currently situations where reusables are going to work for everything. One thing to think about, and it's not the only thing to think about, but an important piece is, what is going to happen to this stuff when you're done with it. And so if you have commercial composting capacity in your area, which is still not as many places as, would be ideal, but if you happen to be in one of the places where they do have commercial composting available, we have the information about which ones are certified compostable in our database. And then as far as recyclable, we're hearing that, because this is foodware or being used to serve food, a lot of this stuff is actually, it's difficult to recycle these products. But if you are able to find products that can be recycled in your local area, that's also a good choice to look at. There's other environmental attributes that are things to consider about how much recycled content is in the products. There's another certification that's the Forest Stewardship Council that looks at where the fibers are coming from, and then chlorine-free bleaching is another example of some other attributes you could look at. So I think I mentioned that we do have concerns about the single-use products overall, just because there are so many concerns. There's lots of impacts that are all along the life cycle of these products, starting from extraction of getting the raw materials, for the fiber-based or agricultural plant-based products. It could involve the use of lots of pesticides and energy. For fossil fuels or for plastics, 99% are from fossil fuels. So there's a lot of concern about sort of all these impacts of the production, the transportation, the use, and then the final disposal of these products and the amount of waste that they're creating. So all of this energy and resources are going into something that you end up using only once and often for a very, very short period of time. And then on top of that, there's a lot of chemicals that are going into these products, some that we know about and others we don't, because the companies don't necessarily have to disclose everything that's going into those products. So this is not something we've been focused on to date, but I did want to highlight that there are a lot of groups, a lot of studies, a lot of research being done around the concerns with plastic. And as I just mentioned, you know, about 99% of the plastics are coming from fossil fuel sources, and the petrochemical industry is actually investing billions of dollars now to expand plastic production by as much as 40% in the next couple decades. We're very concerned about that direction because the markets have been changing for the solid waste, and with China's national sword policy, you know, municipalities here in the U.S. are struggling to find markets for these plastic and other products, and some places are even shutting down their recycling programs. So there's a lot of concern about continuing to expand our use of plastics. We actually need to be going in the other direction and looking for ways to decrease and eliminate wherever possible the plastics that we don't need. So if you are, though, looking at the certified compostable products and have commercial composting, so these are all applying to places that have commercial composting and not backyard, we do recommend looking for BPI certified compostable products. That's the Biodegradable Products Institute. It's a third-party certification that actually changed its standards so that starting January 1st of 2020, anything on their list that's certified as BPI will no longer be able to have PFAS in it. So they weren't aware about this issue earlier, and so you know, products currently certified as BPI can have PFAS, which is a bunch of these molded fiber products. And so January 1st, though, you will be able to go and look at their list and be able to know that these have been verified to not have PFAS in them. And there's another group called the Compost Manufacturing Alliance, which includes the Cedar Grove Composting Facility up in Washington State. It's a group of, I think, 6 composters who've gotten together around the country, and they actually field test these products through their facilities to make sure that they actually break down the way they're supposed to in the time given and under the conditions. And so they have also changed their restrictions. It came into effect a little bit later than BPI, so their list will be free of PFAS by January 1st, 2021, a year later. So we are recommending that in the meantime, purchasers put in requirements for BPI certified if you're going to go with a compostable product. And then I wanted to mention that, you know, as far as polystyrene, you know, I realize that a lot of folks may be still using them, these products, because they are incredibly cheap, but it is, there's a lot of just concern about polystyrene as the sort of building block ingredient is styrene, which has been recognized as a possible human carcinogen, and there's studies showing that it can leach into food or drinks as well. In addition, even though the industry likes to say that it is recyclable, and it may be technically recyclable, but in reality, it's very difficult to recycle. New York City actually looked into this more closely and determined that it just can't be recycled in a manner that's economically feasible or environmentally effective. And I believe that many, many other places are finding that that's the case as well. And so a lot of places are actually starting to and already have instituted bans on polystyrene foam and other products like that. So one thing that you can do, though, as far as the PFAS issue, and actually municipalities and other states and locations are putting in restrictions, passing ordinances, have model purchasing specs that are trying to get at the litter and the single-use plastic issue, as well as restricting PFAS from the food service container products. And Beth, who you'll hear from a little bit later, actually was instrumental to what New York did on their guidance document for how they're purchasing the food packaging. And San Francisco also has been a leader in developing specifications. So there's also legislation that's been passed in different areas. This is just two examples of cities that are really leading the way in actually going beyond, just the plastic and litter reduction, but actually going and moving forward policies that are promoting reusables. So Berkeley's disposable free dining ordinance is actually going to start requiring restaurants to serve food to customers that are dining on site to serve customers in reusables. And San Francisco is actually also in the process of moving forward with trying to pass a similar ordinance that goes, I think, even further than what Berkeley's doing. So as far as the database, I just wanted to show you all a little snapshot. We're about to update it, so it'll probably look different, and we'll have a lot more products coming out on it. But you can look it up on our website, and we have information that tells you the SKU number, as much information as we can find, whether it's BPI certified or not, and whether we've found PFAS in it or not. And if you don't find a product that you're interested in our database, we actually can help you with testing that product for PFAS, and you can submit it to us at no cost. And there's a form at the end of our report on how to submit the products to us. So just to recap, as far as purchasers, you all are here helping to move the market. You can participate in product testing. You can communicate with your suppliers about your desires for these environmentally preferable products without these toxic chemicals. Communicate with the certifiers, use these model specifications, and continue to, show that preference for the non-fluorinated foodware, as well as avoiding some of these other products of concern, and really push the market towards reusable. So I'm really excited to sort of turn the talk over to these two school districts so they can tell you about what they've done to try to move away from single-use and towards reusable products. So I'd like to introduce Beth Meir, and one sec, I'm just pulling up her information. So, are you there? She's a special assistant for pollution prevention and green procurement with the executive staff of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. And as I mentioned, she has been very active in the area of finding environmentally preferable foodware for New York State, but she's also an advisor to this group of students that you'll hear from who were part of this project at Ichabod Crane to move back to reusables. So joining her will also be Jeannie Blau and Jasmine Emmerling, who are students currently at Ichabod Crane High School, and they're members of the Girl Scout Northeastern New York Troop 1001. And with that, I'm going to turn it over, and I'll stop sharing my screen so you can share yours.
All right, we're just sharing our screen, and I can start talking while Jeannie's doing that. Thanks for that great introduction. I also help lead the whole state's agency sustainability and green procurement program as my commissioner's designee. And having worked extensively on food containers and being aware of the issues with perfluorinated chemicals and styrofoam that Sue just summarized, I was really excited to work with these students when I had the opportunity to work with them on a project related to their school's switch back to reusable trays. And I was also surprised to learn how many schools had moved away from the reusable trays of my youth and were throwing away trays, hundreds of trays a day, which is sort of shocking to those of us who didn't know that that switch had happened. So I jumped at the chance to work with these guys, and I encouraged them to dig into the details and document the school's decision points so their experience could inform others. and I'm happy to present today with Jeannie and Jasmine. And it's so satisfying to engage with young people, to work with them, to help them protect the environment now and into the future, both for them and future generations. It's been a real pleasure, and I'm going to hand it over to them to tell their story.
My name is Jasmine Ermeling, and this is an overview of our project design. The value of our project and our reason for doing it is to study why our school switched from reusable to styrofoam back to reusables, and to inspire others to also make the change. The first thing we needed to do was identify our key decision makers, who to interview and when to interview them. We had to draft questions to ask. We needed to create a plan and editing our final videos, coming up with our numbers, and working with an artist to develop our graphics, and then finally making our edits to get our finished product.
The Ichabod Crane Central School District previously used reusable plastic trays in the cafeteria. In 2011, the district decided to switch to styrofoam trays in the middle school and high school because they thought it would be cheaper. They recently decided to switch back to reusable trays to benefit the environment and save money. Our documentation of their story focuses on the middle school.
It was budget restraints is why they switched the first time to the styrofoam trays, because we didn't have a dishwasher. But
we had gone through a cycle where we bought all new plastic trays again, and then slowly but surely they would disappear. Why that is, people get lazy, maybe they don't want to walk all the way over to the window to put it in the tray.
The environment, it saves a ton of garbage. I don't know if you've talked to Mr. Rich, but the garbage is at least cut in half by using it, and it saves a lot of money too.
Almost a tractor trailer load of styrofoam every year we were shipping into the landfill, district-wide. So we did go to hard trays at all 3 schools. So we put up the one-time cost, hopefully, to put those in all 3 schools, and then we can save money, we can help the environment all in one.
now we have the dishwasher person, so therefore we can use the plastic trays.
Yeah, we have a really nice big machine that we stack all the trays in and just sends it through, and it cleans and sanitizes all the floor.
We actually were using those at the primary school because the little kids, believe it or not, the styrofoam trays for little kids on certain meals, they're harder for them to hold. So we took all the hard plastic trays, the reusable trays from the middle school and the high school, and we sent them over to the primary school, and we would use those. Now we aren't like completely gone with styrofoam because there are some times where we're going to need it, like a shortened day, when students go up to the classrooms and stuff, so that we do give out some styrofoam trays. But we've probably reduced it by 90%.
Advantages was a lot less. The ordering I don't have to do because we don't get any more styrofoam trays in. We just always have them. They're always here. There's really not many disadvantages. It is a little more work, but we made it work out just fine. We brought in an extra person to help do all the dishes, so it's gone by really well.
I think it went well. I think that overall it's been very successful. I think the students here see what we were doing. I think they're cognizant of like the environment and some issues. I think that's good.
We've had actually really good feedback. The kids like it. They actually, some days when it's, if there's a snow or a delay, some days we have to switch back to styrofoam for a class or two. And the kids get upset. They like the hard trays. So.
We should have sucked it up as a district and hired a dishwasher. But now that we have done that, it's so much better for the earth. Whatever they had to pay a dishwasher, this outweighs that. Okay. So it's just the best thing we could have done.
It just kind of flowed, like it was just like it almost was like an easy trip, just kind of. I haven't had anybody complain about it, which is good, right? And most of all, like they're not throwing them away. I think people prefer the hard reusable trays. I did all the analysis on it. It really, in the long run, it's actually cheaper to run with the hard trays, even with washing them, because we're only buying them hopefully one time. Hopefully no one's throwing them away. So where the styrofoam, we're buying them over and over and over and over again. And we also see some cost savings in our landfill, in our charge for the dumpsters, because we don't fill the dumpster with.
That's where it is. Okay, so I'm Jeannie, and this is all the information that we use to make the cost analysis shown in the video. So the school used about 450 styrofoam trays per full day of school. The trays came in a case of 500, and each case cost $17.70. The school needed 500 reusable trays for 10 years because that was their lifespan, and that accounts for a 10% replacement rate. The reusable trays cost $3.50 each, and there are 175 days when both meals are served in the school year.
Our annual savings were that we saved $5,400 and dollars for disposal, and $2,787 for the purchase of the styrofoam trays. We saved $8,187 in total, and the disposal of the trays cost almost 2 times as much as the purchase for the styrofoam trays.
So the biggest takeaways that we got from this project were that reusables create so much less waste. After a year, the school would have used almost 80,000 styrofoam trays. After 5 years, almost 400,000. And after 10 years, almost 800,000 plastic trays would be used and thrown away. So that is clearly a lot of waste. The reusables really do not cost more. In the long run, even when dishwashing is accounted for, it is still a lot less than having to constantly buy trays. And even though the labor costs were downplayed by our food service manager, and we couldn't really get solid numbers for them, the district really emphasizes that the reusables save money even when the dishwashing is considered.
Our personal big takeaways from this project and what we've learned is that our school had a certain hesitance to provide us more information on our financial details. We were very impressed that our school was concerned for our future and taking action on this problem. We found out reusable trays really are the best thing to use in the long run. And we were very happy about the positive student feedback, which is pretty good achievement because middle schoolers aren't the easiest to please. And finally, it's a triple win because we saved money, helped the environment, and performed better. And this has gone so well that our message to other schools and other people considering taking this action is to just do it.
Yeah, and for those who might have had a hard time hearing the audio, I think the biggest message from the food service manager is that even though they had switched to the styrofoam, they ended up deciding that the cost savings and the waste really drove them back to reusables. And they were very excited about how easy it was to switch back, that it just all went very smoothly. No one complained. He never got any complaints about it. And then the custodian was really excited that he did not have to take that kind of waste out. He was personally, I think, very dedicated to reducing the waste coming out of the school. And the cafeteria manager was excited as well and said how easy it was for them to switch back to washing the trays. So overall, the different sectors of the school that needed to be supportive found it to be an easy switch back to reusables, and it's a great story for other students and other schools to take to heart. And that's it.
That's great. Thank you, Beth, Jeannie, and Jasmine. So I think we'll now turn it over to Rebecca, who is the first sustainability program manager for the Palo Alto Unified School District out in California. And she's been collaborating with the Palo Alto School District Food Services Director to transition the district's elementary school lunch program to reusable lunchware. So I will just turn it over to Rebecca.
Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Phoebe, for having me. And welcome to everyone. I'm really excited to share where we are. We're right in the thick of rolling out our reusable lunchware program for elementary schools in Palo Alto Unified. So I will share with you what our decision-making process was leading up to the rollout and how it's been going since we started this school year. So for context, Palo Alto Unified is a mid-sized K-12 public school district in Northern California. We happen to be situated in a community that's very forward-thinking on lots of different sustainability fronts. We got word of the fact that the city of Palo Alto was planning to pass an ordinance at the council level banning lots of types of single-use plastics pertaining to grocery stores as well as food service industry. So we had some internal conversations about PFAS, and we also knew that City Council would ultimately consider this single-use plastic ban to be the first in a two-phase transition toward a reusable model. So ultimately, we decided to sort of bunny hop the city government and just move straight from single-use plastics in our food service program to reusables instead of trying to transition to compostables as a stopgap in light of the fact that there are health concerns that are becoming increasingly well documented, and additionally, it's still a single-use model. So the food service director, Alva Spence, and I first went to the school board in June, their very last meeting of the school year, June 2019, so not so very long ago. We brought with us someone from the city of Palo Alto, and we talked to our school board about our value in keeping in alignment with the city's goals and also reaching a little farther to move toward the reusable model. We asked for their support. We were not sure if we would get it. They were actually totally enthusiastic, totally supportive. So after that board meeting, we quickly got a working group together, and we decided that we were going to try and spend those precious couple months of summer when the pace of a school district changes in a way that allows you to do a little bit of planning for the year ahead. So I was in the working group, our food services director was in the working group, as well as the central kitchen supervisor. I should note that we have a central kitchen model, which was actually a point of challenge, to be sure, in this entire thing. We included our custodial supervisor, the rep who is from our waste hauler, and also someone who works on zero waste from the city of Palo Alto. We invited some teachers as well. They were not able to attend because it was the middle of summer, but we kept them in the loop and we shared our notes throughout the process with them so that they could give us their feedback about everything that we were planning to use in this rollout. We also had a parent involved in our working group. So we used the working group to sort of vet both the materials that we would move to, as well as the processes that we would put in place, not just to roll everything out, but to sustain a reusables program once it was rolled out. Initially, we felt like day one of the school year would be the right time to roll out the program. We realized we needed a few weeks at the start of school to interface with a number of different people who'd been away during the summer or just otherwise occupied, so that we could really have a solid program. We thought it was probably more important to do a solid start than start on the first day. Once school started, we quickly spent a lot of time meeting with site administrators, site secretaries, clerks, making sure that everyone in food services at each elementary school site was well trained for the rollout, making sure that site custodians were well trained for the rollout, and finally, making sure that students were educated about this exciting change and knew how to participate. One of our biggest fears actually was that all of our reusables would end up in the trash. It ended up being such a non-issue. The whole reusables concept was incredibly intuitive for even our youngest students. So we went live with our rollout right after Labor Day on September 3rd, and we have been using reusables in all 12 of our elementary schools since that time. We did, as you can see from this picture, opt for, after great discussion, plastic reusables. We have not yet found a solution for our hot entrees. So we use both the screen clamshell and this red basket to serve all of our cold entrees. We liked both of these products because the manufacturers were very willing to give us materials sheets. We were able to share those with everyone in our working group and make sure that everyone felt comfortable with the reusable items we opted for. We would love to find a reusable option for our hot entree as well. That's the last thing we're working on. The frustration has been that anything that can sustain the food temperature from the central kitchen as it's brought out to each of the elementary schools remains too hot for students to touch when it's served. Right now, we are still serving our warm entrees in single-use aluminum. It is recyclable. It's also, it doesn't conduct the heat in a way that makes it dangerous for students to touch. So we are actually, this is a little bit of a spoiler alert, we're actually partnering with Rethink Disposable on a case study about this project, and they are helping us look for a solution for our hot entrees. So hopefully, well, stay tuned for that case study. I think it's going to come out November or December, and hopefully we can find a solution for our hot entrees as well. We also switched from a single-use plastic spork to a metal spork, and the way that we are logistically managing this is with this cart that has 3 tiers and these red bins, these red tubs, I guess they're called, that go on each tier. So the students are served in their reusables. They eat outside at picnic tables, and then these carts are placed by the custodian around the other 3 sort bins. So in the eating areas, we now have landfill bin, compost bin, recycling bin, and reusables return cart. At the end of lunch, those carts go back into the multi-purpose room where our students are served their lunches, and a van driver makes a route through town to pick up all the dirty dishes, bring them back to the central kitchen, have them washed, and return to the sites the following day. Here's some information about our lunch program. Our average daily participation for breakfast is about 400 students and 3,400 for lunch. We were spending about $28,000 annually on what was primarily single-use plastic lunch items. Those would be plastic sporks, plastic clamshells, and we also had these paper boats, which were compostable, however, they were single-use. Our initial purchase for the Reusables program was $22,000. That includes all of those carts with the red tubs that we use for collection. So there are some costs embedded in that number that we imagine aren't things we will lose or need to replenish. We do anticipate needing to replenish the items that the students are actually being served in. And we did hire both a part-time van driver and a dishwasher, and the non-benefited annual salary for those two individuals combined is $27,000. So you can see here that this is making financial sense for us on top of all of our sustainability goals that it's achieving. There are some pieces to our program that are making a difference in terms of helping it be successful that aren't necessarily embedded in any of the planning that we did for this project, but we found to be incredibly instrumental in having everything work from the get-go. We happen to have installed a dishwashing machine at one of our two high schools about a year ago, before we had any plans to move to reusables. This actually is one of the main things that allowed us to do this program smoothly. We split the district geographically into two pieces, and we have one route for the high school dishwashing machine and another for the central kitchen dishwashing machine. So we're actually able to double the amount of washing that we do every day, because we have that extra dishwashing machine at one sort of, I guess you would say, satellite kitchen, since it's not the central kitchen. We also have a food services team that is awesome at every level. Our director is very forward-thinking, very willing to partner on sustainability topics, and she delivers that energy down to everyone in her department. I had a lot of gratitude during the first couple of weeks of this rollout for our central kitchen supervisor. Change is hard. Even change for the better can be really uncomfortable when you're figuring out how to make it work. And there was a lot of, there were a lot of little bits and pieces that needed to get figured out on the fly, despite all of the planning that we did during the summer. And she was experiencing a lot of excitement from myself and our food services director to just go at this full force, and she was getting a lot of hesitation from all of the people working at the sites in food services, and so she was kind of caught in the middle, and she did a really graceful job of keeping her eye on the big picture and figuring out how to get everyone in food services at the site level feeling confident and comfortable, and just creating buy-in for the program overall. Also, I wanted to talk about this really cool partnership that we have with the city of Palo Alto called the Zero Waste Champion program. This program has nothing to do with our reusables. However, it's been key in the success of the reusables rollout. So several years ago, when the city of Palo Alto decided to start issuing fines for non-compliance with the three-sort waste system, or contamination over a 10% threshold in the three-sort waste system, we decided that we needed to figure out how, as a school district, we were going to get kids as young as 5 all the way up to adults. Excuse me, all the way up to adults managing proper waste sorting. And what we decided was we would have one staff member per school site who was tasked specifically with auditing the waste weekly, providing education to students, interfacing with custodians, interfacing with site leadership on the topic of waste sorting. So we already had this very well developed program of people at every school site that we could bring together and ask for support during this reusables rollout, which is exactly what we did. We had at every single school site someone helping at lunch every day for the first day of the rollout to make sure that students knew exactly how to participate in the process. And what we found was that moving to this reusables model had a delightful and unintended consequence of better waste sorting overall in the general student population, because students were now pausing to think about what to do with their reusables, and in doing so, taking an extra minute to sort their waste generally. So there's still a few things that we want to do. I mentioned that we want to figure out a reusable solution for our hot items. We are also going to try for the second semester of this school year to figure out how to do away with a little more of our single-use packaging, specifically the packaging that the health department requires on fruit. We're looking for a non-single-use plastic solution for that, and for our condiments, which currently come in single-use plastic packets right now. Our biggest goal is to cook on-site. We might be able to get there one site at a time. We do have one elementary school that will have the ability to cook on-site next school year. We're hoping that can be a place where we test out the idea of moving to a fully cooked on-site reusable model, and maybe other elementary schools will follow that model. I would like to echo what the students from New York said, which is just go for it. We had lots of worries about ways that moving to reusables could be disastrous. And honestly, it's been really delightful to watch the program succeed and to see so many people excited and on board for the idea of growing it to the middle school and high school level as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. This is Phoebe. So should we just switch directly into Q&A, or did you have some follow-up slides, next step slides?
Yeah, I think that's good. I will just have our contact information, but.
Great. Rebecca, just to follow up with what you were just presenting, thank you. That was, it's great to see the leadership in Palo Alto and the support you have. Someone asked about whether folks are using reusables in breakfast after the bell program, which I thought was a good question. There's a lot of schools that are doing kind of breakfast in the classroom. If there's any examples of folks out there that have done that.
Is that a question?
Are you guys doing that?
Or is that for?
Yeah, are you guys using that, Rebecca, or Ichabod Crane?
We're doing like a quasi transition. So we did away with juice boxes and a couple of other single-use items, but we haven't moved to full reusables yet.
Yeah, our breakfasts are eaten in the cafeteria. So we do use the reusable trays.
Great. Kelly, who asked that question, will follow up with some other ideas from other school systems with you outside of this call. And Rebecca, there's also another question about using aluminum for hot food and reusing those aluminum containers, and why you weren't doing that. Is there, were they,
I think it's
durable?
a durability issue. I mean, I've seen them I'm well familiar with them, and they unfortunately really are like almost a foil.
Okay, that's what I assumed. But great. A question for Ichabod Crane folks. There was a question about the cost of sort of the individual trays versus the styrofoam trays in your district. You talked about sort of the larger costs across the district as a whole. Did you guys have a breakdown of those individual costs?
Well, there was, so each reusable tray cost $3.70, and then the styrofoam trays came in a case of 500, which lasted roughly a day, and that cost $17.70.
And the total cost, so the total cost of buying the reusable trays was $1,850. And we sort of did a calculation of how much it would be over time. In the first year, the styrofoam trays cost about $46 a day, including disposal. We definitely put the disposal cost into that. And the reusable trays cost about $10 a day. After 5 years, the styrofoam trays are still costing $46 a day, and the reusable trays are costing $2. And after 10 years, the styrofoam trays are still costing $46 a day, and reusable trays are costing about $1 a day. So the overall cost of the trays, that does not include the price of the cost of dishwashing. But as we said, we had a hard time getting the data on the labor. They did not have to buy new dishwashing equipment. And they don't have centralized kitchens. So I think it was easier for them. And it seems like they did hire someone to do the dishwashing, and their job part-time was to do the extra tray dishwashing. But the district really played down that cost. And as the custodian said, the time spent by the dishwasher was maybe equally equivalent to how much time he was spending taking all the trash out every day. And the actual cost of the dishwashing, the food service manager said, was still cheaper than using the styrofoam trays. So it's something that we, if we were doing a deeper dive, we would probably dig into that a little more. It's an interesting question, but it didn't seem to be a big issue for Ichabod.
Yeah, and for folks, the video that you saw a piece of today has some more information about their study and their results. We'll send the link out in the follow-up information. There's also a question for Ichabod Crane about determining the cost of disposal of the styrofoam trays. My understanding is that it was a cost of a dumpster, the dumpster size. Is that correct?
Yes. So it was the dumpsters. It was deducted from. We were carrying out 10 cubic meters, and it was deducted to 7. So that was where all the money was saved.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have a number of questions, Sue, for you about your presentation. One of them, just a clarification. So you were talking about certified compostability of trays on various products. So just to clarify for folks that when it is a certified compostable product, it implies that it does not have PFAS or PFOA, correct?
Oh, yeah, let me clarify. So currently the products on the market and on the list could have PFAS, but January 1st of 2020, so just in less than 2 months, if you go to the BPI certified compostable list, those will no longer be allowed to have PFAS. So anything on those lists in 2020 and on should be free of PFAS. And the other point I forgot to mention is that even if you get a certified compostable product, which you should, you still need to check with your commercial composter on exactly which products they will accept, because it does vary by facility, by region, by all of that. So you will still need to communicate with your, composter and even your recycler on what exactly they will take and process. You should ask if they will process it. Sometimes they will accept stuff that they will still send to a landfill.
Yeah, good point. And there was a question, Sue, about, and this is something that comes up a lot here, the feasibility of trays and like various products that a young student is carrying, especially elementary age students. Someone asked if you have any recommendations for reusable trays that can tolerate young students handling them, as well as repeated dishwashing, so durable options for young students holding hot food or multiple items. I don't know if you can recommend a specific product, but I'm wondering
if I'm not sure if I can unmute her. Let me see. Hey, Julie, are you on? Because so someone from the Greenwich Public School District in Connecticut has been working on a project to get her school district to go to reusable, and they've been doing a lot of piloting and testing of different products. I think I unmuted her, but I'm wondering if you might be able to, yeah.
So sorry, the question was about a possible disposable without PFAS in it?
No, I think they were saying, is there a better reusable that the kids can, the smaller kids can handle, I think. Is that right, Phoebe?
Yes.
Okay, so we did a pilot at one of our elementary schools in spring, and we used a stainless steel tray by Winco. It was compartmentalized, but it was quite large, larger than a styrofoam tray, standard styrofoam tray. But still, all the younger kids, K and first graders, had no trouble handling it. They got a little bit heavy when they were stacked, and they were also, we have round cafeteria tables, so having them all lined up the same format got a little tricky, so some of them had to turn their trays the other way. But in terms of handling it, all the kids, had no problem. I spent about 3 weeks in the cafeteria monitoring, and there were no spills or drops or anything, but we are going to be looking for a smaller stainless steel tray, possibly round, that we, can put more into our dishwasher, can, it is easier to handle and can fit around our tables better. Does that help?
Yeah, and here at Ichabod, actually, maybe you guys couldn't hear it, but our food service manager spoke to this issue. They actually kept the reusable trays they used to have for the little kids, because the little kids couldn't hold the styrofoam trays. I mean, it's on the video, and the trays that these guys have are a plastic tray that's being used in the kindergarten, elementary school, as well as the middle school. It's got compartments. The food goes right on the tray. There's not any extra stuff that goes there, and it's used really well. So I'm going to ask the students to find out what the name of that brand is and get a picture of it for you guys, and so you can see what they're using at Ichabod, because it's working.
Great. Okay, we are at time. We have a few more questions, but we are out of time. So I think that we'll probably pause here. And as we said, we'll share the recording to this call. We'll share the slides that you saw today. So a couple folks were curious about some of the content in the slides. We'll share those, and we'll also share some links to some key resources that were pointed out today in the presentation.
And yeah, I think we'll do our best to try to respond to some of the questions that didn't get answered today in the session.
Yep. Thank you, Sue, for co-hosting with us today, and our panelists taking the time to present and share your stories. It was really wonderful, especially to hear from students and their active work to make change in their school system. So thank you all, and hopefully we'll have you guys on the next couple webinars on this topic in November and December.
Great. Thank you.
Take care.